Good morning. Welcome to this webinar, Supply Chain Relocation and Development in North America, sponsored by Iberdrola and American Industries. USMCA's rules of origin and the pandemic have been catalysts for global players to implement nearshoring practices across the supply chain. Mexico has naturally become preferred destination for relocation, expansions, and new ventures. In this webinar, 4 industry leaders will discuss this phenomenon by addressing Oems and Tier 1's efforts to expand, to relocate their operations to North America. Alongside part of their supplier base, the outlook for Mexican suppliers after the pandemic, as well as innovation and digitalization trends. The 4 experts and business leaders that will lead us through this topic are Alejandro Lara, Chairman of American Industries Group, Nazaret Black, CEO of Sacua Mexico, Manuel Guevara, General Manager, Querétaro Bros Group, and Oscar Silva, Leader Partner, Global Strategy Group of KPMG Mexico. Before our first presentation, we will release 5 poll questions that we kindly ask you to answer. After the 4 presentations, we will have 10 minutes of open discussion with the panelists, and we will look at the results of this exercise. You can also send your questions to our panelists. We will answer some of those during the open discussion session. For our first presentation, we have Alejandro Lara, Chairman of American Industries. Alejandro Lara has an MBA from IPADE Business School in Mexico City and a BA from the University of San Diego. He has more than 15 years of experience in promoting business investment in Mexico and has worked with over 30 global companies setting up shop in the country under the shelter model. Alejandro, welcome to this webinar.
Thank you, Misael. Thank you all the audience for tuning in today to this important webinar.
Perfect, Alejandro. Let me share the screen so we can start with your presentation. Just one second. Thanks for joining today, Alejandro. And we are very happy that you are able to share your expertise with our audience. Okay, I think now we are sharing your presentation. Go ahead.
I can
Thank
see
you.
it now. Yes. Well, once companies have decided to relocate into Mexico, one of the most important processes that they have to go through is the site selection, where to locate exactly in Mexico. And we're going to explore in this presentation the factors and the process that they have to take into consideration, and how to soft land into Mexico without trouble to start operate here. Next. We are seeing, it has been estimated that there's a disruption of the supply chain every 2 months, every 4 to 5 years for a 2 months disruption. This can be due to acute climate change events, macroeconomic or financial crises, trade disputes, or pandemics, as we have seen this year. So entire industries are rethinking and transforming their global supply chain to make it more resilient. This year, companies have exposed their vulnerabilities, especially those early in the year with the events related to the pandemic in China. Next. So Mexico, due to these factors, has become a very important alternative for the supply chain to rethink on establishing here. And the most important factors that are making Mexico such an attractive location to relocate the supply chain is because we can be an alternative to ensure global balance and resilience. We are part of the largest economic bloc, and we've achieved this year new certainty in trade policies with the signing of the USMCA agreement. We have an adaptive and highly skilled labor force with over 1.3 million joining the workforce per year, and more than 110,000 engineers coming into the job market every year. We have a competitive peso currency that tends to remain undervalued against the US dollar. And very importantly, compared to China, we have 80% less shipping time and 75% less shipping cost in serving the North American market. So that is a very important consideration. Next. The site selection process, first of all, is very important to understand the project. What is the project scope? What are the company's objectives in relocating into Mexico? What are the corporate decision criteria? And we're going to elaborate this more in this presentation. What are the cities that are being considered? Make a cost analysis of what is the comparison of cost comparison of operating in the different cities that are being considered. Make an evaluation matrix taking into consideration the corporate criteria and the different results that we're obtaining on those criteria in the different locations. And taking everything into consideration, make a final site selection, regional site selection. Then comes the more specific decision on what building to choose in that region that has been selected. A due diligence process has to be made on the different locations that are being taken into consideration, different buildings, and facility adequation costs have to be estimated. It is important to take into consideration in this process what are the incentives that are being offered by the different states in the different regions of Mexico, and to make a site visit to compare the final options that are being considered. Next. What are the corporate region selection criteria that are normally taken into account? One of them, one of the most important ones is distance to market. For example, here in Mexico, if it's very high weight manufacturers, near the border, the north border becomes very important, especially if a lot of these products are going to be exported to the US or Canadian market. The other companies decide to establish in central Mexico if they want to be close to the automotive Oems that are located in central Mexico. It is also important to consider to be close to suppliers. For other companies, becomes very important to be close to skilled labor or to a very stable turnover region. Quality of life considerations are very important, increasingly so, to retain talent. Security is also an important factor, and last but not least, government incentives. Next. Concerning facility selection criteria, the time frame is important. If we have an extended time frame, a build-to-suit building can be an option. If we have a short time frame, we're going to have to choose between existing buildings. Utilities requirements are very important. Not all industrial parks have all the required energy capacity, so that it's an important consideration, or the water availability. And not all industrial parks in Mexico have natural gas that are required in some of the arriving companies' processes. Some companies decide to be outside or inside industrial park, and it has to be a decision that has to be made. Buy or lease is also an important consideration, whether a company wants to lease or they want to own their facility. What are the options to setting up in Mexico? A company may decide to have a wholly owned subsidiary. They may want to find a joint venture partner, and the solution that we're going to be focusing on, because it's the most important solution to soft land in Mexico, is the shelter program. Or a company may decide to outsource their production in Mexico to a contract manufacturing company. Next. Next, please. Related to soft landing, the shelter concept is the most important program to soft land in Mexico. The arriving company brings their manufacturing expertise, and the shelter supplier provides all the administrative functions required to operate in Mexico. So the arriving company provides management to direct operations, has full control over production quality, engineering, design, and delivery, and the shelter company provides daily administrative support in HR, accounting, and customs. It is an ongoing consulting, and it's such a deep partnership that it becomes a critical part of the establishment process in Mexico. One of the slogans of the shelter model is that the company can focus on their core business, and the shelter company takes care of all the administrative complexity of operating in Mexico. Next. Next, please. In the organizational chart, this is a way to understand how the responsibilities are divided between the shelter company and the arriving company. The white rectangles are the responsibility of the arriving company into Mexico. As you can see, it is focused on manufacturing, engineering, and design, and quality. The blue rectangles are responsibility of the shelter company. So it has to do with all the customs and logistics responsibilities are part of the shelter. The accounting and fiscal are part of the shelter solution, and the human resources are part of the shelter solution. As you can see, it's a very deep collaboration, teamwork between the arriving company and the shelter soft landing solution. Next. When is the shelter the ideal solution? When companies want a quick startup in Mexico with low risk and liabilities. When they want to rely on an experienced partner in HR, logistics, accounting, and tax. When companies want a partner that has established robust processes, systems, and experienced administrative personnel. When they want a comprehensive solution, and when they want to leverage from an established local network. Next. I represent American Industries, which is one of the most important shelter suppliers in Mexico. We have currently more than 50 clients, manufacturing clients in the shelter program with more than 16,000 employees. We're also an industrial developer with more than 15 industrial parks developed with more than 125 buildings for lease. Next. Our clients come from all different countries in the different manufacturing sectors, automotive, aerospace, and other industries. Next, please. I would like to invite you, if you want to further explore site selection process in Mexico, evaluate what is the cost of operating in the different regions of Mexico, to contact AI so that we can support you in this important decision process in taking advantage of our manufacturing success here in Mexico. Thank you very much, Mexico Business Event. And thank you very much for the audience to tune in today. Have a great rest of this webinar.
Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you for sharing your expertise with our audience. And I mean, we will reconvene at the end of the 4 presentations, and we will have, as I mentioned, the 10 minutes of open discussion. As I also mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we are going to release the questions, the poll questions that we kindly request from our audience to answer before we move on to the next presentation. So as you can see, you will see on your screen the poll and the questions. So we invite you to share with us your knowledge about these topics and your opinions. For our second presentation of the day, we are going to leave open for a couple of minutes the poll, and we will continue with our webinar. We will continue our presentations with Nazaret Black, CEO of Saqua. Nazaret is a businesswoman with broad experience in the automotive supply chain, recognized as one of the top 8 female leaders in the automotive sector in Mexico and 200 in Latin America. Nazaret is CEO of Saqua, Mexican electric vehicle manufacturer. She is also co-founder of CarFast, the first digital dealership founded in 2004. In 2019, she launched CarFast Financial, the first automotive fintech in Latin America, with well-known experience in mobility, electromobility, digital transformation, sustainability, Industry 4.0, e-commerce, and digital marketing. Nazaret is a leading voice in the sector, and we are very happy to have her today with us. Nazaret, welcome, and please share with our audience your expertise in this topic.
Muchísimas gracias, Misael. Muchísimas gracias a todos por tomar un tiempo para escucharnos. Agradezco muchísimo el espacio y la oportunidad de poder compartir mis opiniones. Sin duda es un tema muy interesante el que estamos tratando hoy. A mí me pidieron comentar por allí. A ver, Misael, nada más porque creo que perdí un poquito el audio al final. Me pediste que compartiera un poco, que hablara un poco de mí al inicio, o me voy directito al topic de las preguntitas que me tocan.
Adelante, Nazaret, perdón, se me cortó la comunicación, pero ¿cuál fue la pregunta?
La pregunta era, me pediste que comenzara compartiendo un poquito de mi experiencia o que me fuera ya directito al tema central.
Adelante, o sea, si quieres platicar sobre el tema central, sobre el supply chain relocation,
Okay.
Sabemos que la experiencia que tienes es relevante al tema, entonces, bueno, pues, como lo quieras estructurar. Adelante.
Bueno, me parece perfecto. Bueno, por allí me hicieron esta pregunta. Yo creo que todos la traemos un poquito en mente. ¿Cuál es el rol que van a jugar las empresas mexicanas en la nueva era del TMEC? Digo, bueno, vamos a recordar primeramente que las reglas que plantea de origen son muchísimo más estrictas y buscan una mejor integración. Nosotros hoy en este momento no vamos a tener que realizar un trabajo para alinearnos a estas nuevas reglas y esto nos va a costar tiempo y obviamente pues tenemos que pasar por ahí por una transición para poder llegar a ellas. Yo en lo personal creo que el rol que vamos a jugar va a ser positivo a mediano plazo, ya que logremos adaptarnos a estas reglas, definitivamente va a ser positivo. Identifico 2 puntos, hay más sobre los que me quiero centrar, y es que una de estas reglas establece que gran parte de la integración de un vehículo tiene que ser de una misma zona nacional. Entonces, esto nos va a llevar, y lo considero muy positivo, a que se va a poder o se podría lograr que el costo neto de un vehículo en Estados Unidos tuviera una proporción de componentes, básicamente alrededor de 75%. Esto es buenísimo porque si luego lo agregamos o lo tomamos este elemento y seguimos una línea, lo que va a hacer es detonar más inversión y esto a su vez va a establecer la posibilidad de que pueda haber una mayor cantidad de empresas de proveeduría establecidas en México. Considerando, por supuesto, obviamente por ahí algo de lo que mencionaba Alejandro, lo interesante que es México o lo atractivo que resulta México, que siempre ha sido y que va a resultar muchísimo más atractivo por esto en los próximos años, por la ubicación estratégica que tenemos y poniéndolo en retrospectiva contra lo interesante que es el mercado latinoamericano y el americano mismo. Entonces, siguiendo estas reglas, veo que definitivamente hay un panorama positivo y vamos a jugar un rol muy positivo hablando de las empresas. Yo ya veo por allí a los clústeres muy organizados, tratando de adelantarse a esto. Ya tengo un par de años, 3 años más o menos, un poco más, viendo cómo están organizándose, incluso adelantados, y veo que esto del TEMEC definitivamente nos vino a dar el mensaje de que vamos en la línea correcta. Y bueno, un puntito extra sería el tema de que nos va a brindar más certeza sobre la continuidad de desarrollo y crecimiento de la industria automotriz mexicana. Y pues bueno, un puntito extra por ahí es que nos va a ayudar también a tener un panorama más equitativo al interior, porque recordemos que México, la clave era que obviamente, o el secreto más bien durante muchísimos años, dependió que los salarios mexicanos fueran significativamente muchísimo más bajos que Estados Unidos y que Canadá. Entonces, todas las cadenas de valor que se crearon iban unidas a esto como un elemento base. Entonces, esto es lo que nos saca de base y es lo que nos va a costar un poquito poder superar para llegar a esa parte donde ya se empieza a ver el tema muy, muy positivo. Luego por allí me pidieron comentar qué lecciones hemos tenido en SACUA para integrar una cadena de suministro para nuestro vehículo y las alianzas clave. Para quien no tiene el gusto de saber, de conocerme un poquito o de saber qué es SACUA, les platico que SACUA es la primera marca mexicana de autos eléctricos y por ende tenemos el primer auto eléctrico mexicano. Ahora, ¿qué lecciones hemos aprendido nosotros en este camino? Por ahí habría que empezar que realmente ha habido lecciones enormes, comenzando por la historia misma de SACUA. SACUA no fue creada por una persona que viniera de la industria automotriz per se. Viene de la imaginación, del sueño de alguien que no estaba en esta industria. Yo creo que a lo mejor eso mismo hizo que tuviera un poco de inocencia sobre saber a qué se enfrentaba. Y de pronto ese mismo desconocimiento hace que pues no tengas tanto temor a lo que te vas a enfrentar. Entonces creo que eso ayudó muchísimo. Cuando alguien no te ha dicho que no puedes hacer algo o que va a ser muy difícil, por ende no lo consideras muy difícil. Entonces, el tema de SACUA comienza hace 20 años. Hay 20 años de trabajo, de desarrollo de la tecnología que hoy tenemos. Y las lecciones aprendidas son que a pesar de que México es muy fuerte y es muy reconocido a nivel mundial en temas de mano de obra, como siempre lo digo, de ensamble, de capacidades probadas, esto es en la industria automotriz tradicional, hablando de vehículos de combustión interna. Si tú mueves esto a un tema de electromovilidad, es un campo completamente virgen. Entonces, para nosotros, la mayor lección es poder comprender que en México no existe todavía todos estos elementos para poder haber logrado nuestro desarrollo. Entonces, para nosotros que estamos en el tema de electromovilidad, la mayor lección ha sido comprender o aceptar que China es clave en este tema, porque China es la punta en este sentido, es la generadora mayor de tecnología. Y entonces lo que hicimos fue una contorsión poco ortodoxa en este sentido de decir, bueno, pues si China no puede venir a mí, déjame ir. ¿Por qué? Porque allá es donde está el ecosistema tecnológico correcto, el entorno adecuado, con las condiciones adecuadas. Y lo que nosotros hemos estado haciendo y que ya tenemos y que es parte para lo que viene, es decir, bueno, es que allá está el desarrollo que nosotros necesitamos los elementos. Entonces, lo que estamos haciendo es, para no quitarle lo mexicano al coche, es enviar un equipo de gente nuestra y trasladar por lo pronto, por los próximos años, nuestra área de I+D hacia China, para que se encuentren en ese ecosistema donde están los elementos, donde se puede generar allá, desarrollar allá, establecer las conexiones correctas, identificar los elementos que necesitamos para nuestro desarrollo con mentes mexicanas. Y entonces aprender de forma más acelerada ya y entonces venir para poder proponer también a México con todo ese aprendizaje adquirido allá. Entonces, bueno, hemos aprendido muchísimo que el tema de las alianzas ha sido muy clave y a su vez hemos trabajado en el tema de desarrollar la proveeduría local porque no existía. Entonces hemos estado haciendo este trabajo en 2 vías. Voy y aprendo allá, trabajo allá y entonces vengo e implemento ese conocimiento aquí en México y desarrollo proveedores locales porque quiero tener toda esa proveeduría 100% mexicana. Entonces, hemos trabajado intensamente y creo que vamos a seguir en esa misma línea. Y por allí, hablando de una pregunta que es más bien patriótica o filosófica, me dicen, oye, Saco es un referente de que un auto mexicano es posible. ¿Cómo otras empresas mexicanas pueden obtener ese protagonismo? Entonces, aquí me regreso un poquito al punto que mencioné. A ver, todos sabemos que México tiene una capacidad, una experiencia probada, reconocida a nivel mundial en temas de manufactura, ensamble, fabricación de autopartes, etc. Entonces, todo esto deja claro 3 cositas. Tenemos talento, somos trabajadores y sabemos trabajar. Ahora, Sacua, ¿qué representa Sacua? Pues Sacua es la muestra de tomar todo esto que estoy mencionando y aplicarlo para el desarrollo completo con sello mexicano. Y a su vez, representa el mensaje de que es posible y todos podemos hacerlo. Para que otras empresas puedan tomar parte de este protagonismo, ¿qué pienso que puede ser o qué es necesario? Punto número 1 es atreverse, por lo que dije, tenemos mucha capacidad y mucha experiencia en algunas cosas en la industria tradicional. Lo eléctrico, que es de lo que estoy hablando, es una tecnología que para nosotros estamos todavía en inicios en temas de desarrollo, en temas de crear toda esta base que se necesita para cadenas de suministro. Entonces tenemos que tomar esas ganas e ir donde está y luego traerlo para poder ser también parte esencial de esta creación y de esta originación de los elementos que necesitamos para que México pueda migrar y trasladar toda esa capacidad y toda esa experiencia ahora al ámbito de lo eléctrico. Entonces, creo que para mí el primer elemento para que otras empresas puedan obtener ese protagonismo de ser una marca de autos eléctricos o de combustión mexicana es primero es atreverse. Punto número 2 es generar alianzas estratégicas y ahí va un tema muy importante. Al nosotros ser pioneros en esto, logramos un coche, el que hoy tenemos rodando, que es generación 1, que nos hace sentirnos muy orgullosos porque es tecnología mexicana, talento mexicano, y ya tenemos un auto rodando a la par de grandes marcas. Y al ser un auto generación 1, obviamente hay N cantidad de cosas que mejorar y siempre va a ser así porque en la industria siempre las marcas están mejorando todo el tiempo. Entonces, para nosotros es un logro enorme porque ya tenemos un coche eléctrico rodando a la par que todas las otras marcas que tienen un auto eléctrico. Nosotros hemos decidido que como aportación a este ecosistema que queremos desarrollar tecnológico en temas de electromovilidad en México, hemos tomado la decisión que una de las líneas va a ser poder abrir el desarrollo que ya tenemos para generar alianzas con otras empresas o con otras personas que quieran ingresar en esto y poder hacer a través de alianzas que puedan obtener la plataforma o las plataformas que estamos en proceso de desarrollo. Plataformas que ya están homologadas, que ya están probadas, para que pueda ser más fácil para otra empresa enfocarse más en el desarrollo del modelo mismo del negocio que quieran emplear utilizando ya una plataforma de un vehículo eléctrico probado. Entonces, de nuestra parte estamos en eso. Y el tercer elemento, creo que va en todo, es el tema de la paciencia. Hay que ser muy paciente, porque hablando específicamente del tema de electromovilidad, bueno, es una carrera de resistencia, no es una carrera de 100 metros. Entonces, pues bueno, no sé si por ahí, Misael, ¿con esto será suficiente o agregamos algo más?
Muchas gracias, Nazaret. Está perfecto. Muchas gracias por tu intervención. Creo que aporta mucho la experiencia que nos puedes compartir en base pues, a la experiencia que tienes tú. Entonces, bueno, pues continuamos con la estructura, Nazaret. Muchas gracias. I will switch now to introduce Manuel Guevara, General Manager Querétaro of El Marqués plant at Brose, Mexico. Manuel Guevara has been part of the Brose family for 20 years, taking active roles at different locations in Mexico, the US, and Germany, including Brose plants in Ciudad Juárez, Reynosa, El Marqués, Würzburg, and New Boston. He holds a bachelor's in industrial engineering for Universidad Autónoma de Querétaro, an MBA from IPADE. He has been plant manager at Brose El Marqués plant since 2014, leading a team of 1,200 people to deliver state-of-the-art driving doors and seat components. Manuel Guevara also serves as board member at the Querétaro Automotive Cluster and key universities in the region. Manuel, thank you very much for joining us. Please go ahead. I will share the screen to start your presentation. Manuel, I think you have your mic in mute. If you can help us unmuting yourself.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
All right. Thank you very much. I apologize for it. So something sometimes happened. So thank you very much, Misael. Thank you to Mexico Business for giving us this opportunity to share this different experiences that we have. Really, that's great for everyone. So I will start with the presentation from El Marqués. I will do that very quick because it is important to know, perhaps not everybody knows who is Brose. So I'm just previous information I can give you. Brose is a family-owned company, and since 100 years that Brose exists, it's a German company. The first time when Brose decides to invest outside of Europe is in Mexico, in Querétaro, Mexico. So at that time, I remember it was 1993. We had 7 plants worldwide. Currently, we are 65. So you can see the growth of this family company. We are the 5th bigger family-owned company that exists in the automotive industry. And this is very good information that I want to share with you. So if we go to the next slide, please. So this is our facility. As I can say, we started operations in 2010. So currently we have a total of 977 employees. That was a part of information last year. So currently we are 1,200. So we sales in million euros. We have currently 253 million euros. So we have a facility of 55,000 square meters. So our products, we are producing cooling fan motors, power lift gate motors, window regulator motors, electric power steering motors, drive train actuator motors, heating, ventilation, air conditions, electric braking systems, seat components, and oil pumps. Those are new products. So, but finally, uh, our core business. This is electronic and electric components. So main customers you will see during the presentation, but we are supplying as a tier one, Volkswagen, BMW, Ford, Mazda, General Motors, Audi, Honda, Daimler, Nissan, FCA, and Infinity. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is a little bit about the story, so I'm not go deeper in detail. So it was founded in 1908 by Max Brose, and we have three finally business divisions. One, this is applied to doors, all the different components for doors, latches, motors, and etc. So the second business division is seat structure. So we are supplying the seats, not completely done. So we are supplying as a tier two, but it is all the seat structure and all the electric and electronic mechanism. And the third one, this is electric motors and drives. Different, I already mentioned what kind of motors we are producing from this facility. If we go to the next, please. This is our growth in this facility. This is only El Marqués in Querétaro from 2014 until 2019, 2020, so as expected. So you can see that we had some expectation for sales, but due to the COVID and all these issues, we had a drop of business during 2020. But I will explain a little bit more in detail after this presentation. If we go to the next, please. As I mentioned, we are supplying as a tier one, we are supplying as a tier two, we are supplying as a tier three as well. You can see the different customers that we have from this facility. So I need to mention as well that after Proce decided to invest in Mexico, the first facility that was in Querétaro, and currently we have 4 different facilities in Mexico, 3 in Querétaro, 1 in Puebla, and this is what I'm showing from El Marqués. We are supplying as well our Proce plant systems, plant sisters, not only in Mexico, but as well in Europe, in Asia, and within Mexico as well, the US and Canada, and Brazil as well. So we are supplying to all these different countries. If we go to the next, please. So this is a little bit of a share of our different products and business divisions that we currently have in the Marqués. Not going deeper in detail because we have few time to show the rest of the information. The next, please. Just different examples of different cars that we are supplying. So we are a little bit more dedicated to the luxury line of cars. As you can see, BMW, Porsche, Mazda, Mercedes-Benz. So just as an example, and what products do we have in those cars? If we go to the next, please. As well, so the Ford, different Audi, different products that we have and what we are supplying and what kind of motors those cars they have. Just as statistics, in the all automakers or the cars built worldwide, 85% of those cars, they have a Proce product inside. Just as an statistics and for your information. If we go to the next, please. Okay, this is a little bit the layout of El Marqués. We have 55,000 square meters, and we have 1,200 employees, I mentioned, and we are running currently more than 120 different programs and projects to supply to the automotive industry. Next one, please. Just I want to mention, this is the last slide. And we are not only taking care about the automobile industry, but we need to, during the last years, Brose has been growing a lot. And we know that in this industry, if we are not really going together with the market and the needs of the industry market in the car makers, and then it is difficult to get a success. So we are concerned as well for charity. We are supporting the homeless people here in Mexico. We have some time in our employees, for example, they are not a strict time, so they are flexible time. We have a gym very well equipped because the people, they don't need to go outside to to get fitness or to make some exercise. We are supporting as well the cultural way here in Querétaro, because we are interested as well on the people and the citizen and the city where we are located. We have as well, very important to say, a lot of, when I started to study in the market, and I already heard in the last presentations, one part in Mexico is education. So I remember 20 years ago when I was in the university, we had in the state of Querétaro only 4 universities. Today we have 72. So we are trying to put this in this system of dual education that exists in Germany. And now this is the first time that a Mexican company has an investment inside a university to really start working with our people, future professionists, since the beginning, since they are still in the universities, and we are part of all the different careers, and we are located there, and we have invested inside the university to have an innovation center. This is all about El Marqués, and this is what I wanted to show what Brose is doing. Going a little bit more in detail, what is going right now. So with all these changes, and I wanted to show this the last slide. So if you can see how the vehicle production growth has been. So if we can see in 2017, that was the biggest production of automotive that we had. And currently, if we can see the growth from 2017 until now, it has been 0. So regarding our predictions, we are going to have exactly the same volume that we had in 2017 in 2025. So what then we are obligated to have a very aggressive programs for 2025. We need to look into, before we had plans for 1, 2, or 3 years. Now we have to look for the coming 5 years. That will be, the situation will be a little bit really difficult for the automotive industry. So as well, the political headwinds. So we have unpredictable policies. We have more restriction regulations, and all the trade conflicts that we currently have. And for sure, the Brexit, that this is another thing that had a huge influence. As well, the OEM strategies. So the product strategies, for example, we have to have more products, electronic products and digital products. And this is where we need to invest a lot of in technology and innovation and investigation. So major cost reduction for sure, because the OEMs, they are very aggressive with the prices, and the different OEMs alliances. Every time we can see the different OEMs, they are working together, and those alliances, we need to commit as well with the OEMs if we want to keep being leaders into the market. So competitor strategies. So for sure, the competitors are a little bit stronger, so aggressive attacks, especially from Asia, from China as well. So we have different portfolio with different new products. And for sure, definitely this market is heavily focused on target costs. So this is some of the figures as we can see how is coming the market in the future. And I have to say that what is important from Mexico, and why Mexico, and what we have seen during the last months. So unfortunately, we had this problem with the COVID, but before we had a very huge trend to move operations to Mexico. In our case, I remember in Mexico, we have only manufacturing people that we said, okay, if we are going to go to Mexico, is because we have cheaper labor costs, and then it's why we are going to Mexico. And the different regions to design and to develop the different products and processes, that was even in Germany or in the US. But during the last 2 years in Brose, we have a huge trust about the Mexican people. As you already mentioned, the NASA had mentioned as well, and this is not the exception. So now we are going to move operations from Detroit and from Germany to Mexico to this facility. Currently, I have 100 people working as designers for products and processes. And this is a very good news for us as a Mexican. So unfortunately, I repeat, with this COVID, a little bit of some of the things regarding to sales, they were stopped. But I'm happy to say that we are again in the same way to really bring those operations to Mexico and to bring more and more products into Mexico. As I mentioned, the huge advantages we have is geographically, we are close to the US, but we are not supplying only to the US, we are supplying as well to Europe, to Asia, and South America. The other second is education. We have a very good universities currently. The third one, we have people with really, they want to very good workers, as well as you mentioned in the previous presentations. And the third one is, yes, we have a cheaper labor, but as well, our young people, we have, this is one of the strengths that we have in Mexico as a country to really being competitive in that industry. And we need to be really, now we are going to into the, as I mentioned, in the technology, digital technology. We have been investing a lot of in have this investigation and innovation to really get into the digital situation. Our advantage as a Brose is that we are completely in mechatronics area. So we know since a lot of years this experience, and we have been bringing new products to the market, just focus in mechatronic and digitalization. And we are very proud and happy that we currently are into the market, because we were just thinking about the future. And this is mainly it from my side.
Perfect, Manuel. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your insights with us and with our audience. We will now move on to the final presentation of today. Oscar Silva, leader partner of Global Strategy Group of KPMG. Oscar has 17 years of professional experience, dedicating 13 exclusively to advise investors in the development of business strategies, growth, market entry, M&As, and economic impact analysis. As a senior strategy consultant in industries such as automotive, wholesale, electric market, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals, telecommunications, IT, and mining. Among others, Silva works shoulder to shoulder with board members, managers, and entrepreneurs to develop and transform their business strategies with the goal of achieving sustainable growth and transforming companies across borders through global multidisciplinary teams participating in international projects with collaborators from the US, Latin America, Asia, and Europe. Oscar, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And I will, hello, Oscar, are you here with us?
Yes, can you hear me? Because I see
yes.
my image is freezing, but yeah, I'm here.
Perfect. So I will start sharing your presentation, and go ahead. Thank you very much for being with us.
So, muchas gracias a Mexico Business y Mexico Automotive Summit por tenernos hoy aquí. I'm going to switch to English per request of the organizers. So thanks a lot to Mexico Business and Mexico Automotive for having us today here. It is very tough to go at the end because everything's been said by my fellow panelists. So I'll try to be creative to share some value with the audience. Just a brief note that KPMG strategy team, we support clients with designing entry strategies into Mexico. We support a lot of foreign companies that want to enter the Mexican market to design which is the best strategy for them, whether that is a greenfield, which includes a site location, or that is an M&A operation that requires to identify a company. And in doing so, we always prepare, we are always trying to share important information with our clients, and we develop thought leadership pieces to try to understand the trends that are shaping industries, including the automotive. So what I want to share with you today, it's exactly that, a few papers that we've developed and that show some trends that are happening just today with COVID-19, but also with the industry as a whole. So can we go to the next slide, please? So, as I said, there's a lot of trends, a lot of long-term trends that are shaping the automotive industry. And some of these trends are being affected and accelerated by COVID-19. So I'll try to go clockwise. If you see, I'm going to focus on the ones that are highlighted in red. And the first one is regionalization. I'm going to talk about this at the end because it's perhaps the most important one for the topic that we are discussing here. So I'm going to jump it. But then digitalization, my fellow panelists already talked about, Manuel from Brose already said that they are speeding their digitalization process, and we are seeing that across all industries, but also the automotive one. We have a paper in which we analyze, we think that at the global level, 30% of the dealerships are going to be transformed into digital dealerships. Nazaret, she is the CEO from a company which is the first digital dealership in Mexico. So we are seeing this trend. Maybe it's going to be a bit few in North America, with Mexico included, but that's going to be a trend, and dealerships have to be prepared for it. Of course, big data. Other thing that is happening with the pandemic is that it's fueling the use of big data, because customer behavior is changing dramatically, and it's going to be changing a lot in the coming months. So to understand their behavior, big data is becoming a very important element. I already talked or discussed about the transformation of dealers. So I will move to mobility services platforms. We are seeing an increase. We've worked with some OEMs here in Mexico to develop business models related to car sharing, to car hailing, and to a lot of these type of new business model. And we see renewed interest with this pandemic, because we believe we also produce another paper in which we think that total miles. We did this study for the US, and we believe that total miles are going to decrease by 270 billion miles. So that's a decrease of 3 to 9% that we are foreseeing, because of trends such as home working, and also the use of digital channels. Instead of going to shop to the mall, the people is increasingly using digital channels. So this is going to hugely decrease the miles driven, and it's going to affect the automotive sector. However, these mobility platforms could counteract this trend a bit, because they are surging, and the lifespan of a vehicle in these platforms is way shorter than a private vehicle. So there are a lot of counteracting trends. Of course, in customer behavior, they are switching to use rather than own. We believe that total car ownership is going to decrease. For example, in countries such as the US, today there's an average of 2 cars per family, and we believe that is going to be closer to 1 in the next decade, because people is going to use a mix of elements. They are going to have their private car for the family, maybe for the weekends, but in the day-to-day, they will prefer to use other mobility platforms, as I just said. And today, with COVID-19, the public transportation is facing a challenge, because those people who can decide, of course, there's a lot of people who doesn't have the option, and they have to use public transportation. But for those middle-income families that can afford a car, they are going to prefer to use a car. So again, a counteracting trend. So can we move to the next slide, please? So this is a very, very important trend, as I mentioned before. Regionalization, it's going to occur at a faster pace in this decade than the previous one. We just launched an automotive global executive survey, in which we talked to 1,000 executives from all over the world, CEOs and C-level executives, and they believe that in the next 10 years to 2030, less than 5% of the total production is going to be located in Europe. Just to give you to show what this means, from 2010 to 2019, car production decreased from 18 to 15% in Europe. Today, it sits at around 14%. So we are going to decrease that to 5%. So it's a huge decrease, which is larger than the one we faced in the previous decade. And Mexico is very, very, very well positioned to take a bit of that production, even though the North American region is not expected to grow that much in production, because, as my fellow panelists said, China and some Asian countries are very, very well positioned to win that production. There's going to be some relocation in Mexico, as also my fellow panelists from BROS mentioned, that they are thinking of relocating production from the US. We are seeing a lot of renewed interest in relocating from China, from Europe, and from the US to Mexico. This is like waves. We had a wave like 10 years ago in which a lot of suppliers came following the OEMs that have been established here in Mexico in the last few years. And we believe there's going to be another wave, more focused on the tier one, tier two, which we need a lot because we have a very good chain in the tier one and OEMs, but we are lacking that strength in the tier two. And that's going to be, we believe, the trend in the next few years. Also COVID-19, of course, is strengthening this trend. We are facing a geopolitical context that is fueling this trend. As you know, there is a trade war between the US and China, and there's also a technological war between the US and China that is going to resemble a bit what we had in the Cold War. And US companies and US governments are going to prefer to use technology which is produced in North America rather than in Asia. So again, we have this regionalization trend which can benefit Mexico. And now with COVID-19 and with the close of borders, we are seeing that this trend is strengthening. And again, Mexico is very, very well positioned to take advantage of this huge trend. Can we go to the next, please? This is another important thing. It's been mentioned a lot, and my fellow panelists already discussed about it. We have a huge cost-benefit advantage related to other countries. We still hold it. We do an analysis which is called competitive alternatives, in which we compare 14 different industries in 9 different countries, and we compare costs, one of them being the automotive. And we are right now, we are in the process of relaunching this analysis for 2020. But in the previous ones, we identified a 22% difference of cost with the United States. What we do is that we simulate an automotive operation, and there was a 22% difference with the United States. And that in an industry that has, as you may know, very tight margins, it's really, really, really relevant. Maybe that difference has narrowed a bit and will narrow in the following years because of the new requirements by the TMEC or the USMCA agreement, but Mexico will remain competitive. And remember that the other important suppliers to the US market are, for example, Japan, are Germany, which are very, very good manufacturers, but they are much higher in terms of cost. So there's an opportunity for Mexico to take some of that cost. And my final remark here will be that we don't have to focus on just cheap labor. I mean, cheap labor has its advantages. It's been very good for the developing on the industry here, but it hasn't been that good for workers here in Mexico. But the good thing is that Mexico has a very, very good cost to quality ratio. That's what we like to focus on at KPMG, in the cost to quality ratio, because even though there are other countries which could be cheaper. The quality, Mexico has a quality advantage in addition to the geographical advantage, the cultural advantage, and many other advantages that had already been mentioned. But the cost to quality ratio is a key element for Mexico, and that's why we've been seeing some companies, just as Sacua manufacturing in Mexico, but also the high level companies such as Audi or BMW that are also manufacturing here, and companies such as Bros that are increasing their production in Mexico. So we still have a very good and interesting cost advantage as compared with most of other automotive manufacturing, and that's why we've been moving up in the production volume that we are doing this year. I think we closed at sixth place, and again we can take some share from countries such as Japan and Japan, the US, and Germany, probably not from China. Next, please. So this is my final slide. I agree with what has been said, that we're going to face a low growth environment in the next few years. But again, this relocation of production means that even with low growth, we can take some additional share from another countries. So trends are counteracting each other, and we believe that regionalization is a powerful one that is going to benefit Mexico. So which are, just as a summary, which are the trends that are affecting on the negative side? Well, we had an offer shock, as you know, with the COVID-19, an offer shock that shaked the global supply chains. And then it was followed by a demand shock that we are facing right now. So when you have economic shocks, it's usually on the demand side, sometimes on the offer side, but it's seldom both. So right now we are facing both shocks, and that's why the industry is having a tough time. Then we have the less miles travel that I discussed before. Home office is here to stay. Maybe not at the scale that we are seeing right now, but it's going to stay at some scale. And also digital purchases are going to stay at a very interesting scale. I was discussing with the CEO of the leading company in online retail, the leading online marketplace in Mexico, and he said that during the pandemics they saw 1 million additional clients. Those were clients that didn't buy before, but because of the pandemic decided to buy, and a lot of those clients are going to stay there. So digital, as you know, it's becoming a huge trend, and it came to stay, and COVID-19 is accelerating that importantly. Then the use rather than own that we already discussed. We have development of mobility platforms. That is good and bad. It's bad because you share the car, but as I said, the lifespan of a car in those models is way shorter because of the technology improvements that they go very fast, and also because it's shared, so the lifespan it's going to be like 2 years or so. We have a more environmental oriented consumer, and that's going to probably shift from electric cars. However, governments are also will be key in deciding which technology of powertrain is going to be the leading one, and that's going to be regional. Before we had like a global technology that was the leading one, but today governments are going to shape what type of technology we are using in the countries, and we're going to see that in the following years. And on the good side, okay, we have health concerns that push preference for private transportation. Also, the nationalism, trade and technology war, local consumption trend, closeness to demand, closeness to the customer. That means that all production is going to be more local, more regional. And again, that's going to be a huge impact for Mexico. It's like another wave. Maybe, when I say huge, if we compare it with the previous trend, maybe it's not going to be as big, but it's another wave of relocation that is going to benefit Mexico. The digital purchases we already mentioned, and the USMCA regional content rules that can affect on both sides of on both sides of the analysis. So hopefully this is interesting to you. But again, at KPMG, we produce a lot of this type of content. So please feel free to call to any of the numbers here, or to use our social media, which is KPMG Mexico, or at webpage kpmg.com.mx, in which we have all this thought leadership, or fifthly, to shoot me an email and we can discuss further all these things that we discussed today. So thank you very much again, and I'm sorry if I extended a bit.
Don't worry, Oscar. Thank you very much. And thank you to the rest of the panelists. Now I will ask for Mexico Business team to release the Q&A, so we can see a little bit of the answers that the audience gave us. So we have the first question, and it says, what is the most relevant factor that makes Mexico an attractive manufacturing investment destination? And we see that 78% shows that geographic location and access to international markets. That is the first choice for most of our audience. Also, competitive labor costs. I wonder if Alejandro, Manuel, Oscar, do you have any comments regarding this question, and what do you think is most relevant? And if you agree with the audience that geographic location and access to international markets is actually the most relevant factor that makes Mexico an attractive investment destination. It's open discussion, so if any of you want to mention something.
Misael, maybe, I mean, this is Oscar.
Yes.
I just mentioned that, but yeah, I totally agree that those are key factors. I would add the cost to quality ratio that we just mentioned. That's going to be another interesting one. And again, the geopolitical context is very interesting, this shift that we are facing from globalization to regionalization, because the last 30 years have been globalization, 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 and today we are going backwards. Not really backwards, but we are going against that trend, and that's going to benefit Mexico as well. So totally agree. And another important thing is that this geopolitical context, a lot of people believe that if there's another president different from Trump, that's gonna change and that's gonna shift away. But we don't think that. We think that this trend is here to stay. Maybe in 30 years' time we'll see another globalization wave, but today regionalization is the name of the game.
If we go, yes, Manuel.
Yes, Misael, I could mention, I agree with Oscar, but I will mention something which is important as well. Yes, I agree. The first one is the logistics and location and geographic situation. The second one, which is competitive labor cost, is getting more and more in the third place, because the availability and skilled labor is getting more and more in Mexico, with people with engagement, with really very good quality. In my opinion, I agree with the people that this voting, but I would put in some years the number 3 and the number 2. That's just my comment, because really I trust in Mexico and we have very good people.
Perfect. There's a couple of other questions. The number 3 is, in your perspective, what is the most effective way to ramp up operation in a different country? 63% of the respondents said joint ventures. And number 4, how do you expect nearshoring to affect Mexican suppliers? 69% said that it has a positive impact in Mexican suppliers. Alejandro, I don't know if you have any comments regarding these two questions and the answers of our audience.
The situation with the joint venture, it can be an ideal way to start up in Mexico for arrival companies. The fact is that it is difficult to find joint venture partner candidates for companies arriving into Mexico. That is why we oftentimes recommend them to establish their facilities themselves with the support of a soft landing partner, such as a shelter partner, which has been probably the most successful program that allow companies to establish in Mexico trouble-free, especially for companies in tier 2 or tier 3 that are smaller and have less experience in establishing in foreign countries from their country of origin. This shelter program is especially valuable. The other alternative that companies can choose is subcontracting, but they lose a lot of the control of the quality of the product. So that has some disadvantages. So joint venture may seem ideal, but it is very difficult to find suitable candidates for that.
Perfect, Alejandro. I want to go into some of the questions that we have from our audience. The first question is, how do tier 3 and tier 2 companies are being supported by OEMs to enter the automotive industry? I don't know if any of you want to answer that one. If yes, Manuel.
I could say that we had now in one of the presentations the comment that our tier 2 bases in Mexico is a little bit too weak. I would say that the OEMs supporting the tier 1s is not so easy because we have been very pushed in savings in costs and technology. But what it is really important to take into account is the support from the tier 1s to the tier 2s. In our case, in Brose, we have part of our budget really to invest and to support the tier 2 suppliers to come to Mexico and to relocate here in Mexico. So this is part of the programs for Brose. And when we came here to Mexico, we decided to bring this part of investment to support our tier 2. Answering the question, from the OEMs to support tier 1 and tier 2 is not really so. The only support we have is getting the business here into Mexico. But from the tier 1 to the tier 2 and tier 3, yes, more and more we are supporting this supply chain.
Nazaret, Alejandro, Oscar, anybody else wants to add something?
Yes, I wouldn't disagree with Manuel, but yes, we've been discussing with some OEMs, and they are realizing the importance that the chain has beyond the tier 1. So we believe that even though they are not going to invest heavily, we think that maybe they are going to create some investment vehicles such as funds or some sort of this type of investments which will support the tier 2 suppliers. So I mean, I agree, but I think that trend could be changing in the coming years.
Perfect. There's another question. Abraham Morales asks, beyond USMCA and beyond COVID and China and the US-China trade war, what are other challenges that Mexico faces to be able to capture these investments and the relocation, the potential relocation of other companies? So I don't know if one of you has any ideas other than USMCA or the COVID-19 shock or the war, the US trade war between US and China?
I believe one of the most important challenges that we're seeing right now is to have, for example, the energy to meet the energy requirements of the arriving companies into Mexico. So it is very important to talk with the authorities and make them aware that it's important to meet those infrastructure requirements such as energy. It's basic, and we need to concern ourselves with this factor.
Perfect. I think we have answered some of the most interesting questions. I know the audience was very interested in the content of the presentation shared here. We invite our audience to log into Mexico Business News, where you can find recent interviews with Alejandro, with Nazaret, with Manuel, and with Oscar, and with other leaders of the industry. And I don't know if I would like to open these final minutes if Alejandro, Manuel, Nazaret, Oscar, you want to give a final comment before we finish the webinar.
No, muy interesantes todas las preguntas de mi parte. Ya no alcancé a responder ahorita, quería responder una y por error le moví y me salí. Por ahí hay una pregunta de Vicente Rodríguez, que yo creo que va para todos. ¿Cuál es la estrategia para traer proveeduría a México como grupo para tecnología no desarrollada todavía? Nosotros tenemos, yo puedo hablar en este sentido específicamente por la experiencia que tengo en el proyecto actual. Allí nosotros tenemos un área de desarrollo donde estamos trabajando con universidades, con institutos, no solo a nivel nacional, sino internacional, para tratar de generar desarrollos nuevos. Entonces, lleva también parte de lo que comenté, que estamos en proceso de trasladar nuestra área de I+D a China, que es donde consideramos que está el ecosistema tecnológico ideal. Y la idea es esa, poder tomar el aprendizaje de ellos y que se nutran las mentes mexicanas de nuestro equipo y entonces poderlo traer y empezar a ser parte de lo que se desarrolla aquí en México. Entonces, aunado allá el talento que hay nacional, ¿no? Entonces, eso es parte de lo que nosotros estamos haciendo específicamente hablando. Otras marcas no sé qué estén haciendo y creo que hay mucha área de oportunidad en el tema de desarrollar toda esta parte, tomar toda esa experiencia que tenemos, hablando de la industria per se o típica, hablando de combustión interna, y ahora lo que tenemos que hacer es tratar de migrar lo más rápido posible para implementarlo en temas de electromovilidad. Pero creo que eso para nosotros va a ser relativamente rápido, uno, por la experiencia que ya tenemos, y dos, por la capacidad que tenemos de aprender rápido. Entonces, creo que va a ser rápido para nosotros. Y si sabemos aprovechar todas las áreas de oportunidad que tenemos, va a ser grandioso.
Misael, a mí me gustaría, I would like to just make a few comments. I have had the opportunity to work in different countries. I was in the US, I was as well working in Germany. And I have to say that as a Mexicans, we have all the skills, all the capacities, all the abilities to go, because we have exported at least 25 different Mexicans between Asia, Europe, and US and Canada. And we have the skills, we have the very good people to even to export to different countries. Just we need really to support the young talent, and which is one really good thing that we have in Mexico. And please support young people, support new ideas. And this is the key. We have really very good people, very good professionals, but they are doing a very good and very important, let's say, job outside Mexico. This is my last comment.
Perfect, Manuel. Alejandro.
I would like to comment about recent studies that we have seen from consultants concerning relocation, and the Financial Times study that Mexico right now is the most important nearshoring destination in the globe. So we have the right conditions, and in the last few years we are the main location according to an important publication such as the FP. So I think it's a big opportunity for our automotive cluster.
Perfect, Alejandro. And finally, Oscar, I don't know if you have some final remarks.
Yes, very quick. So this is very, I don't remember the word in English, trillado, that everybody says that when in bad times there's opportunities, but I do think that's the case, and there's a lot of good opportunities for Mexico if we do some stuff that we need to do to bring them. I mean, it's not everything set. We have to do a lot of work, working with government, etc. But we have to remember that there has not been a single crisis in the history of humanity that has stayed. Every single crisis comes to an end. Well, maybe the dinosaurs will say other story, but every single crisis come to an end, and in that sense, this will come to an end. It's a difficult time, but again, remember that all countries are facing this difficult time, so we are in the same boat as other countries, and so there's ways to get advantage of what's going on, and again, Mexico, just by by its current position, is very well placed to get a good portion of the new manufacturing. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Alejandro Lara, Nazaret Black, Manuel Guevara, and Oscar Silva for joining us as a panelist in this webinar. And thank you to our audience for the questions that you sent. We hope that you find the information shared here relevant for your fields. Thank you, everybody. I would just like to mention that this webinar also celebrates the new edition of Mexico Automotive Review in its 2019-2020 edition. This edition is special as it was supposed to be released in March. We want to thank all of our more than 230 industry leaders who have participated with us across the years. Thank you to our sponsors, Iberdrola and American Industries. And as I mentioned before, you can log on to Mexico Business News/webinars. You will find an article that summarizes the content of this webinar, and you will also find the link to the YouTube broadcast. Thank you very much. Have a good day.